And out in New York City, where the Democratic Socialist candidate has stunned the party establishment with victory in Tuesday night's primary, New York State Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani upsetting former Governor Andrew Cuomo ahead of November's general election. Joining us now is Kaylee McGee-White, Fox News contributor, and Yemisi Egbowole, former Biden White House press office chief of staff. So talk to me, Yemisi, about how much of an upset this was, and was this really about the candidate who appears set to prevail, or is it a repudiation of Cuomo?
I mean, this is pretty shocking and incredible for somebody who had been polling at 1% just earlier this year to get the kind of numbers that he did across all of the different boroughs as well, including Staten Island. And so I think it's just, it shows that he tapped into a very energized voting bloc, young people, working class folks, people that typically in the Democratic Party, we say young folks don't vote. Well, young folks really showed that they don't want to do nostalgia again with Andrew Cuomo, and they want to look forward.
So one of his big platforms was rent control, which a lot of young people in New York would glom onto because, I mean, it's so expensive to live in New York. But some of his other positions are like straight out of the Democrats never want to do this again playbook, such as defund the police, abolish the prison system, prohibit state-operated hospitals for suing for medical debt, universal health care, ban all guns, decriminalize sex work, safe injection sites. We saw how those ruined San Francisco, end cash bail, decriminalize drug possession, and end cooperation with ICE right after Eric Adams has started to increase. I mean, these are positions that any Democrat would look at and say, that's why we lost in November of last year. Let's not do that again.
Well, that's right. This agenda is horrible for New York, but actually very good if you're a Republican planning to run nationwide in 2026 or 2028, because Democrats are already looking at this. I was just seeing a tweet from former Obama campaign advisor Dan Pfeiffer earlier today. They're looking at this and using it as a justification to double down on the exact kind of leftism that is politically toxic everywhere outside of very deep blue urban areas. But to be clear, the ideas that Mamdani and AOC and some of the others who are supporting him, the ideas that they're espousing are also politically toxic even within New York City. I actually disagree that Mamdani won working class voters. If you look at some of the demographic breakdowns, it shows that he actually won over well-to-do, highly educated white elites, and he actually lost black and Hispanic and working class voters. The average voter from Mamdani was making $50,000 to $100,000 more than the average Cuomo voter. So clearly Democrats do have a problem, and they really need to find a way to reconnect with the working class, and that's not by promoting socialism.
Yemisi, take a look at this from the New York Times today. They write, our advice to voters in a vexing race for New York mayor. Unfortunately, Mr. Mamdani is running on an agenda uniquely unsuited to the city's challenges. He's a Democratic socialist who too often ignores the unavoidable trade-offs of governance. He seems to lack the political savvy and instinct for compromise that has made Senator Bernie Sanders, his fellow Democratic socialist, an effective legislator.
Well, first of all, he has said himself that he doesn't want to defund the police. He just wants to redirect funding so that mental health professionals can respond to some of the incidents that are reported and that the police can focus on crimes that involve violence.
Didn't you do that in Seattle?
Well, listen, the great thing about a big tent party is that different folks can exist. I'm from Georgia, and I think somebody like Zohran might not win the mayor of Atlanta race, but New Yorkers decided that he's the one that they want. And look, Andrew Cuomo didn't do himself any favors here. Yes. $8.6 million given by Bloomberg, endorsed by Congressman Jim Clyburn, by the Clintons themselves, SEIU, Teamsters. I mean, everybody under the sun that's known as Democrat establishment and elite endorsed this guy, and it still didn't help him. His name is on a bridge. He didn't do the work that was necessary here, and Zohran connected with the people.
Right. But there is one person out there who's still hoping that he can become mayor again. That's Eric Adams. Listen to what he said this morning.
Not going into a place where we want to defund the police, don't invest in jobs, where we believe we can make broken promises that we can't deliver. I delivered on every promise. And I'm looking forward to being on the campaign trail and showing New Yorkers we can't go backwards.
So he's running as an independent. Andrew Cuomo may stay in the race as an independent. Is there a chance you think that Adams could win?
I think there is now, for sure. And I think that if you're a Democrat like Andrew Cuomo or one of the others, I would actually see this as a real opportunity here. I think one of the problems that we experienced over 4 years of Joe Biden was Joe Biden cosplaying as a moderate while actually governing as a radical progressive. Here, there is no more pretending. Zohran Mamdani is absolutely a radical progressive, whereas Cuomo might have tried to toe that Biden line of pretending that he was a moderate while catering to the exact same groups that Mamdani is out there supporting. So if you're a Democrat, this is an opportunity to be honest about where your party is at, what their agenda actually is, because this guy is the future of the Democratic Party, whether they're willing to admit it or not.
And what does that say?
I think multiple candidates can exist, and not every city has to have the same kind of leadership. But the underlying message is New Yorkers want to survive, and he's offering them maybe the chance at affordability.
But do you want him as the leader of the Democratic Party?
I want different voices to help with the Democratic Party, and I want establishment Democrats and longtime political strategists to notice this.
That was pretty diplomatic, don't you think?
Yeah, it was.
Thanks, folks. Really appreciate it.
Well handled, as always. Thank you.
Nicely done. Carrie.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.